Hello, it's James from XRobots.co.uk. This is part 57 of my Iron Man Hulkbuster suit. Before we get started on this episode, I'd like to give a big shout out to Harold from Tool Hubs. So toolhubs.com is a place where you can register if you have a tool like a 3D printer, a 3D scanner, people who can do modelling and CAD, CNC milling, laser engraving or cutting, or electronic engineering, and you can register your skills and your tools on there, and then people can send you work and you can connected to those people who need those sorts of tools and skills. So you can also go and register some jobs on there you want done, and anyone can respond to see if they can actually do those. So it's a site that connects makers together. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the 3D printing section. There's quite a few people registered on here already who have 3D printers, and there's also quite a few people with CNC mills. So go and check out the how-to section there on toolhubs.com, and that looks like it's going to be a really good website. So Harold is a patron of mine who supports me on patreon.com. Have a look at patreon.com/xrobots if you'd like to support me too. Alright, so last time in Hulkbuster we pretty much finished the torso. It may be that I come back to do some more minor details, but I'm pretty happy with how that's going in terms of it being a cosplay at least. And last time I did quite a bit of work on the back, so check out part 56 to see that. But this time we're going to look at the legs, and I think there's about 2 episodes left. There's quite a bit of stuff that needs filling in on the legs, and I don't just want to fill it in with flexible mesh, so it's going to take a bit of a while to get done. And then after that there's probably going to be one testing episode for the whole suit where I can take it somewhere to test, and that's going to be the end of the series. So let's have a look at those legs. So I've done quite a bit of stuff in the past to fill in these bits here. We've got various panels and the fronts as well, so obviously we need to put the repulsors back in the knees, and there's some fill-in sections and things there. So on the torso I used quite a bit of this mesh, which is a bit of a cop-out really, but I couldn't add too much mass to the torso because it's already too heavy to carry. The legs is a different story because of course they are heavy, but your legs are pretty strong, so I can actually walk in them fairly easily. We can afford to add a little bit more weight to them. So we've got these sections that open at the back here, so I can get in and out from the back, and this one drops down quite nicely. But obviously the leg will bend, so if I just undo the latch here, in fact it's undone already, so this leg bends backwards, but of course I need something to go in here. There's quite a lot of big gaps all the way through this that need to be filled in with something. So I need to make something that compresses here, basically on the back of the knee joint, so I can bend my knees, and again around the ankles. The ankles I probably will use some mesh, but I don't want to just hang loads of that mesh in this gap, because that's going to be pretty rubbish. So I want to make something that looks like a proper knee joint and kind of compresses, perhaps like bellows with some flexible fabric in between. Whatever goes in here needs to come behind this as it comes down and probably slightly compress, but also I need to make sure as this opens that in fact the whole thing drops away with it and doesn't get stuck here. So I can't really mount it on this because that doesn't move, so it's got to be mounted on the top here. So probably what I need is a kind of thing that fits there with a separate side piece, which is flexible and can compress as this shuts and then comes away with the whole thing, but also looks like the back of the knee. I've designed this part for the back of the knee, and it will face outwards towards the right here, so it will curve inwards, and this will be skinned up with some fabric so that we kind of see those ribs on there, and it looks a bit like bellows, as I mentioned, kind of like a concertina. Now I've put some flexible bits in. I've cut out these chunks so it can bend very slightly on those 2 places. I was going to do a dual extruder print with Ninja Flex, but I think that's a bit excessive. Only needs a little bit of flex in it, and I don't want it to wobble too much. So I think that's going to be pretty rigid and allow it to compress when it needs to. So obviously all these parts are going to be printed out separately. I need to print 2 of them as well because there's 2 legs. So I've got 5 of the red ribs to print and 4 of the uprights. And then it'll all be solvent welded together. One side is printed, and obviously these parts are slightly compressible due to the notches I cut out, so they pretty easily bend. We should be fine. So now these parts need to be stuck into here, whichever way round. They fit quite snugly. I shaved 0.2mm off the CAD on this, and that generally is enough to make them fit, so those will be solvent welded in, and obviously this comes across to make the inside of the knee. I've stuck those together with solvent welds of acetone, same as all the other parts, and obviously now these compress quite well. So let's see how those will fit on the legs. So the plan is that this piece fits on the back of here, so it flips open with this and leaves the back clear for me to get in. And it may be that this has to shut afterwards, but obviously as the leg bends, the top piece goes over the top, and if it pushes it really hard, then this can compress down. At the moment it just pushes this door open because I haven't put a spring on it. I also need to make a mount to hold this at just the right angle, so this piece can close over it, but from the back obviously when it's open you just see this ribbed thing like the back of a knee. I've put a little hook in here. You can see there's a bungee that runs down to this bolt. It needs a proper hook at the other end, but that now allows the panel here to spring open and spring shut. I've put a wedge on the bottom of these, so this one is already solvent welded onto the bracket here. So now this is sprung shut by that bungee, but if I open this and drop it down, we just have to open the top door as well, it also springs in the down position, and it stays there because this bungee goes to the other side of the bracket. And then as I go to close it, we should find that it springs shut, and I have to be a bit careful with the top door, but there we go. So that's now sprung, and as this closes onto it, it doesn't push it open anymore. Now this doesn't compress quite how I thought it did, but the whole thing is very spongy. You can see it compressing a bit, and obviously this goes back at just the right angle to get the maximum travel in the top of the leg so that my knee can bend, and I think that is enough bend to be able to walk in. I've bought two bits of fabric from eBay. They're both poly cotton, so it's fairly thin, lightweight fabric. I bought two colours. Obviously it's hard to tell in the pictures, but I think this one is probably a closer match than the bright red. Of course these are going to be painted up and weathered as well, but of course the advantage is it's really flexible and it can scrunch up to go in those shapes, so I need to try and drape that now over those frames. Well, I'm not totally convinced about this. I mean, basically it works. It's still quite flexible. I need to tie this fabric off here, but I need to leave the ability here for this to pull downwards, and this piece of fabric here to be the right length. So it kind of works and everything. I need something else in there. Perhaps this fabric should be tied up more like that, although it can't be because when this comes down this distance is much longer. So yeah, it's not quite what I'd envisaged. I'm going to do the other one and throw some paint at it, and we'll see if this is a good strategy on an ongoing basis. I'm marginally happier with that now. It's not too terrible, and if I put a side panel on there so all you can see is this piece, just going to fill in that partially, then I think we'll probably get away with it. Obviously it is round the back, so I probably shouldn't be worrying so much. I've done the other side now, and I guess it doesn't look too bad if you look from a distance anyway. There's going to be another section like that in the bottom here which needs to move in all directions, so that probably will just be a piece of fabric glued in there that's painted up. But for now I'm going to do some of those other side panels and the bits and pieces out of foam. So I need a piece to fit in here, which has to allow this to bend. So I've cut a piece of foam that'll fit in here, and I'm going to paint this up, of course. And that just fits neatly over the top there of this and fills in this side piece. Obviously there's a hole here I can't really do anything about. I can't even put mesh in there because, as I demonstrated, this stretches right away. And this thing has to get much longer, so that's really inconvenient. So it's probably going to be one of those places that I put a bright light in, as per last time. Having said I need to leave a hole here, I've actually designed another rather oddly shaped piece of foam that fits quite nicely on here. And that actually does cover the hole, and of course it's attached to the upper leg. So as it bends, it just covers that hole. So it goes on the outside of this, and it also fits on the inside of this, which opens around it as it opens. It might be a bit too long. I might need to come up from the bottom with another piece. But I'm going to get this painted up and stuck on and glued on and see how well it works. So we're going to PVA and paint these bits of foam and make two that are opposites for the other side. Here they are all painted up. So this one's going to get stuck in here, and this one will go in here, and I've done the opposite ones as well. So hopefully that'll work out. Let's get those glued in and see if I can bend the leg. Those are glued in, and the more I look at this piece, the more unhappy I am with it. I don't think it's going to have that much impact, because obviously when I'm walking around in the suit, people aren't really worried about the back of the knee joint. But I've decided to make some more strips out of foam, which I've painted up. And I'm going to glue those onto where the ribs were, which were supposed to kind of be highlighted, but obviously you can't really see them now. So I've got those to glue in, which hopefully just gives that a bit more impact and makes it look more like a thing that compresses, even though it doesn't really. Well, I'm not sure that's any better really. I would tear them off and make something else, but there isn't really time. The video will be late, and since there wasn't a Hulkbuster last time, I'm going to leave them as they are. They're probably not the best part of the suit though. In fact, they're probably the worst part of the suit, but they are at the back, so I'm not too bothered, I guess. But we'll see how it goes. There's going to be quite a lot more detailing, some edging and things, so we might get away with it. What I really intended was that they were like bellows that opened and closed as I walk, but it's obviously very hard to make sections which compress and the doors that open attached around them. But there we go. I guess if I was going to do this project again, it would be a complete leg redesign for the whole mechanics anyway. Not that I'm going to do a Hulkbuster version 2, by the way, or probably not exactly that. Alright, let's see what happens next. This does at least open and close now, enough for me to bend the leg to walk. I need some more fill-in stuff here to hide the end of that fabric, but that can come along later. We've got another episode, remember, for detailing the legs up, so I'm just trying to get these panels on in this episode really for the main covers. So there is a bit of wobble at the bottom here, so the problem is I can't really fix it to anything because it does need to move down. So there's a possibility to put a rigid rod behind that, but we'll see how it goes in testing. I will probably have a rigid piece that comes up that rests on it, so that might help slightly, that's fixed to the bottom of the leg. But I also need to do something about the bottom of the ankle here, because there's another big gap. And again, that's problematic because this piece of course hinges open, so I can't fix anything rigid in there. It needs to open enough for me to get in, but it also needs the ankle moves in all directions, so it needs to allow that motion backwards and forwards and left and right. So I think it is going to come back down to another flexible material hung between those pieces. I was going to fill up the gap here with some of this mesh and just hang it from the top and from the bottom there and hope that that was going to be okay. The problem is, of course, when this opens, the distance here to here gets much longer, so that's not going to work. It's either going to be really baggy when it's hung here, hanging around, or it just won't be big enough basically. So that's a bit of an issue. So I think what I am going to do in here is put a really bright light shining out, and ultimately looking from a standing position you can't really see up there anyway. The other choice would be to fix something from the inside here, partially coming round. The problem I've got then is actually getting into the suit, because if this is too deep it's going to be really hard to get my legs in and step between the two backs of the legs to get my feet in here and stuff. So, you know, I really want to be able to put my leg around here rather than having to reach right back and put it in a long channel. And also, you're not really going to see the insides of the legs once I'm walking so much. So I really want to leave this open. I might put a short extension on here made out of foam, but I really need that gap. I've got two more panels, one to go on the inside of the leg there, and one to go up here on the inside of the leg as well. So what's going to happen is these are going to get blocked out on more blocks of foam so that they get quite a good spacing, and I can kind of bend those round in a contour rather than them being totally flat. Right, well I thought I should give that a test really to check I can actually move in it. It seems okay. The pieces I put on last time, let me just turn around here. Yeah, I'm a bit restricted there by the toes on the back of the feet, which are probably going to touch each other if I'm not careful. But I'm pretty sure I'll be okay. Not sure how much the back panels are wobbling. That one's come open, so I need to do something about that. Now they're going to touch each other when I turn. It's interesting. So I'm going to have to be quite careful how I walk with my legs apart. I'll put stronger springs on the hole. It's only really turning on the spot. It's a bit of a problem. On the whole, pretty much the same as the previous testing I did with the whole suit on. Well, it's been a fairly frustrating episode to make because obviously nothing's worked out exactly how I thought it would. I kind of came up with the ideas over the last few episodes and I was really ready to do the backs of the legs, but actually practically it hasn't really worked out that way. I probably will revisit the lower ankle at the back and really try and fill that with something rather than a bright light. I've just come up with another idea, but I need to think it through a bit more before I try it. And I'm probably going to leave the knee backs as they are. They didn't look too bad in that bit of testing video, especially if I box them in with some nice things all around, so all you see is that grill at the back. And as I say, it's the back of the knee, so not many people are going to be paying too much attention when I'm walking around in a massive suit. So next episode is going to officially be the last build episode. After that, there will be one more testing video, which will probably be an event or something like that. So the last episode is actually going to be tidying up the legs, and after that the suit is officially finished. Or is it? In fact, you can decide, so don't forget to check back next time to see what my plans are for the future of this suit and other projects. Alright, so don't forget to subscribe for more updates, or at least the last one on this project and other projects in my channel.